Annyeonghaseyo, welcome to the land of Korean cinema. I don't know how many of you have requested today's show for me, but a lot of people did. Having seen it, I can totally understand why. So let's talk about the 2016 series Signal or Signal. The show stars Cho Jin-woong, Jae-hoon, Hye-soo, Chang Hyung-sung, Jung Hae-kyun, Won-hae, and many others. Jae-hoon in the present day is a profiler at the police. When he was a kid, he witnessed the kidnapping and the case becomes relevant in the present again. Then one day he finds an old walkie-talkie and apparently a detective from the past is on the other side of it, and he's working on the same case in the year 2000. Can the past and the present be changed if they work together? If you've seen the show, you know that I left out a huge chunk of the story. I did that on purpose. This show is better watched not knowing anything about it. So I would say that if you're a fan of good stories in general, just go and freaking watch the show. You'll thank me later. Signal is one of the best shows I've ever seen. It's up there with Save Me, It's Okay to Not Be Okay, Mouse, and all the rest. Maybe only Mr. Sunshine and My Mister can top this. It's almost a perfect show in every sense. Take the writing for example. Since the show is constantly jumping between the past and the present, this easily could have been a narrative disaster. That is not the case at all. All of the transitions are seamless, and whenever the story shifts between the two timelines, it's always relevant to the story. Hence, it's always interesting. Take the show Sisyphus for example. There the story shifts between the present and the future, but the story in the future is pretty much useless, so half of the show is irrelevant and boring. Signal is very different, and it's all thanks to the incredible, exceptional writing. The show never loses its focus, and it doesn't matter whether things are happening in the past or the present, it all needs to be there. On top of all that, there are quite a few criminal cases that the main characters are investigating. There's one in particular that is very famous. If you've seen some classic Korean movies from the early 2000s, you might have seen a movie about it. You'll know it when you see it. As soon as it got introduced, I got so excited, I thought the whole show is going to be about that, but no! The story moves from case to case, and each and every one of them is interesting and has some sort of a connection to the main characters. There's a story about probably the most interesting serial killer I've ever seen. I mean, when you almost feel sorry for a serial killer, you know that the show is doing something right. That's a highly psychological case, and honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a serial killer being portrayed like that. I wish I could say more, but watch the show. But as I said, all of the cases have something to do with the three main characters. And by making these stories personal for them, it's so much easier for us as the audience to get invested in these cases. And it works every time, because these characters are outstanding. Cho Jin-woong is slowly becoming my secret favorite Korean actor. Last week I reviewed one of his movies called Black Money, and I only watched it because he stars in it. What this man does in this show is an acting masterclass. He's playing a detective who's pretty clumsy at first, but his heart is in the right place. And throughout the show we get to see him really coming into his own, becoming a really good, smart detective. Which brings him a lot of trouble, because the police are highly corrupt, and he doesn't like that. And he's missing in the present day, so what happened to him, I wonder? Jae-hoon once again proves to me after Taxi Driver that he's a major force to be reckoned with when it comes to acting. In Taxi Driver he had to be a chameleon, he took on many fake identities, so that show showed his versatility. In Signal it's his dramatic edge that shines, and it shines really bright. I saw some of his movies earlier, but I didn't know he was this good until I watched Taxi Driver. And once again, he did not disappoint, he was fantastic. And his character arc is pretty much the same as Cho Jin-woong's. We see him being a rookie, and we see him becoming a very smart profiler, with very strong morals. Him and Cho Jin-woong's character are the same in so many ways, probably that's why they can work so well together, even though they're separated by quite a few years. And then there's Hye-soo. She's basically a link between the past and the present. She started out as a rookie under Cho Jin-woong's leadership, and now she's the boss of Jae-hoon. And you know, she was very good throughout the show, but I thought the two guys were outshining her. And then episode 10 came along, and she stole the whole show with her performance. I seriously had goosebumps watching her acting, she was mesmerizing. And once again, major props for the writing department, because episode 10 focuses on her traumas, and the episode delves pretty deep into those. And the great thing is that they didn't have to do that. Her character was already very well fleshed out, but the writers said, here's this character, and we're gonna make her even more interesting than she was. And that's exactly what they did. Incredible! But the highlights of course are the conversations between the two guys on the walkie-talkie. If the whole show was just them talking, I still would have watched the show. Here are two people who just want to do the right thing, and it feels like the whole world is against them. So seeing them trying to solve things and slowly becoming friends was very heartwarming. All of those scenes are highlights. Almost the whole show is a highlight. Also, I had no idea that this show is going to be this emotional. This is a highly emotional show. Since every case is personal for the main characters, the losses feel 10 times more painful. Because you know, they're investigating murder cases, and people die. And because the characters are incredibly well written and very well fleshed out, you almost feel like all of this is happening to you. It's very easy to get emotionally invested in this story. At its core, Signal is a very strong drama, despite all the stuff that's added to it. And it works perfectly. And if you don't like episodic shows where there really isn't an overarching storyline, don't you worry. For a while it seemed like there wasn't, but it became clearer and clearer with each and every new episode that I'm watching a very carefully constructed story, which is basically about the three main characters through the span of about 20 years, maybe more. The last 5 or 6 episodes are especially cohesive, but I wasn't bored for a minute, I don't think. When it comes to problems, I really have to nitpick here. Episode 7 was probably the only weaker episode. That was the only one where I was like, yeah, this is not that interesting. But it had a huge payoff in episode 8, so it was needed. Also, episode 13 has a lot of visual repetition from the previous episodes, which I thought was completely unnecessary. But the new stuff in that episode was some of the best. See? I told you I have to nitpick here. Oh, there was a very blatant Subway commercial in one of the episodes where Jae-hoon walks into the store and asks for a sandwich. I mean, I get it. It costs a lot of money to make these shows and films. You do need sponsors. But can't you be a little bit more subtle about it? I don't like that. And lastly, the last 2-3 minutes of the last episode were not as effective as I anticipated. The show sets up a possible outcome, and you want that outcome to happen. But the ending is a little bit more open-ended than that. Not much, but it was just enough for me to not be completely satisfied with it. But overall, if you want to watch a highly emotional drama with incredible characters, fantastic acting, and a story that's gonna glue you to the screen, Signal is the way to go. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen, and I'm gonna give Signal 94%. Cho Jin-woong, Hye-soo, and Jae-hoon are all giving their absolute best. The writing is flawless, the time shifts are seamless, and all the cases are interesting. What else can I say? This show is a must! 여러분, 오늘은 여기까지만 해요. 영상 봐주셔서 감사합니다. 이 영상 좋아하시면 구독과 좋아요 잘 부탁드립니다. See you very soon. 다음 시간에 만나요, 여러분. 안녕히 계세요. Bye!